Okay, so we'll start by introducing ourselves. So I am Dr. Laura Stacy. I am an assistant professor in special education, and I am research faculty at the Florida Center for Reading Research. And we also have Dr. Sonia Cabell and Dr. Nicole Patentary joining us this evening. So I'll ask them to introduce themselves in just a moment. Dr. Don Compton is not joining us this evening. He is a professor of psychology and education. He's in developmental psychology and is also at the Florida Center for Reading Research. So with that, Dr. Cabell, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Sonia Cabell. I am an associate professor in the School of Teacher Education and Reading Education, and I'm also faculty at the Florida Center for Reading Research. My work focuses on the prevention of reading difficulties, and I think about instruction that happens during the preschool years and the early years in the early grades.
And hi, my name is Nicole Patentary. I am a professor in reading education in the College of Education, and I am also the director of the Florida Center for Reading Research. I'm very happy to have you all here. My research interests focus in particular on kids who encounter difficulty to achieving language and literacy skills in schools, in particular young children from about preschool to 5th grade age. Much of my research is focused specifically on students from minoritized groups, students with language differences, students with disabilities. And so a lot of my work is concerned with the intersectionality of all those issues and how they play out in classrooms, as well as how they play out in the larger educational system. So it's very nice to see you all here.
Yeah, and let me just take a moment to say a little bit about my work. So my work focuses on students with reading disabilities, including dyslexia. A lot of my work is with elementary age students from about 1st to 5th grade. And much of my work is focused on word reading development and interventions to support students with various aspects of word reading, with a particular focus on students who have difficulty with that. Okay, so what is the R2D2 grant? So this grant is led by faculty in the School of Teacher Education and the Florida Center for Reading Research. And the goal of this doctoral training program is to produce scholars that are ready to train effective teachers, conduct rigorous research, and lead the field. So with partners in schools and communities throughout the nation, R2D2 scholars will join a thriving, inclusive, and interdisciplinary intellectual community dedicated to advancing the science of reading to improve learning and achievement for all learners. So on the right-hand side of the screen here, you can see our conceptual framework. So the overall goal of this grant is to produce stewards of reading research. So as part of this grant, scholars will learn to conduct innovative research to advance the field. They'll develop deep disciplinary and interdisciplinary knowledge. They'll communicate evidence to support preschool to 12th grade learners, and they'll provide leadership and service to the profession and the community. And this all happens within the context of an inclusive interdisciplinary intellectual community with shared reciprocal apprenticeship, supportive structured mentorship built into the experiences on this grant, engagement with local and national stakeholders, and responsive, impactful scholarship. So we have developed this program to help you to become stewards of reading research with all of these different aspects and different elements of support to help you to achieve that goal. So we mentioned that this grant is led by faculty in the School of Teacher Education and the Florida Center for Reading Research. So if you're not familiar with the Florida Center for Reading Research, it's an interdisciplinary research center here at Florida State University, and it draws from multiple disciplines. And here at FCRR, we investigate all aspects of reading across the lifespan. So through rigorous and robust research and innovation and engagement, FCRR advances the science of reading to improve learning and achievement from birth through adulthood. So within FCRR, we have faculty from multiple disciplines. So we have faculty from the College of Education, in the School of Teacher Education, and Educational Psychology. We also have faculty from psychology, communication sciences and disorders, and social work. So as part of this grant, you will be part of that interdisciplinary community and have opportunities to learn from folks from all different disciplines, all with the shared goal of understanding reading and reading development. So we currently have some R2D2 scholars that started in the fall of 2020. So they are in their second year of the program. And some of them are here tonight, and they will be able to answer some of your questions during the Q&A. So we have 5 scholars: Jenny Todd, Monique Harris, Rhonda Rains, Coretta Doss, and Nancy Morensen. They're all pursuing a degree in curriculum and instruction with a focus on reading education. And they are also developing expertise in reading disabilities and dyslexia, so they can answer any questions that you may have from the student perspective. So here's a bit of an idea of what the training looks like. So this is for the spring and summer of 2022 and the fall of year 1, which will be fall of 2022. So let me just talk a little bit about that. So in the spring and summer, so that would be like January 2022 till scholars begin in August. You would participate in orientation activities, including attending the annual College of Education Marveline Hughes Research Conference. And you would also complete R2D2 and FSU enrollment documents and processes and enroll in the dyslexia certificate program. So as part of this grant, you would also pursue a certificate, a dyslexia certificate through the University of Florida, which is aligned with the International Dyslexia Association standards. So this is a graduate certificate in dyslexia. And that would take place over the first 2 years of the grant. So your first 2 years in the program. So in terms of coursework, FSU coursework, in the fall of 2022, you would take a professional seminar, which focuses on academic and professional identity and kind of introducing you to the curriculum and instruction program. And that's a 1 credit hour class. And then you would also take policy and leadership in reading, research design and analysis. This is like an introductory statistics class. And then you would also take research methods in education. So that would be what you would be focusing on for coursework in fall of 2022. In terms of research, you would attend the Dyslexia Foundation Conference. You would also attend the FSU School of Teacher Education Research Colloquium Series, which happens every month. And you would join your primary advisor's research lab, and you would participate in supervised research activities for about 20 hours per week. And you would also attend the International Dyslexia Association Conference that fall. In terms of teaching, you would start the dyslexia certificate program. You would take 1 class in the fall of 2022. And you would also attend the FSU Program for Instructional Excellence Conference and Training. So this is the introductory kind of FSU course to prepare you for teaching at the university level. In terms of leadership and service, you would get student membership to the International Dyslexia Association, the Council for Exceptional Children, and the Society for the Scientific Study of Reading. And you would also create a profile for the National Center for Faculty Development and Diversity. So this is all with the goal of kind of getting you introduced to the broader research community through various organizations and conferences. Okay, so the funding package for this training grant includes a stipend, a $30,000 stipend per year, as well as full tuition and health insurance. And it also includes an allowance for supplies like textbooks, other supplies, and funds for conference travel as well. So I mentioned earlier that you would attend some research conferences and professional conferences. So there are funds available to support you to do those things. Okay, so for the application process, review of applications will begin on December 1st, and it will continue until all 5 fellowships are awarded. So you're encouraged to submit your complete application early, and interviews for R2D2 will begin in December of 2021. So in terms of minimum requirements, you would need acceptance into one of the following FSU doctoral programs where FCR faculty are appointed and assigned as your primary advisor. So you would apply for the curriculum and instruction program with a focus on either reading education or special education. In addition to that, there is a requirement that you have either teaching or clinical experience working with students, P12 students teaching struggling readers, or students with reading, learning, or language-based disabilities. Ideal candidates may have previously worked in classrooms or as classroom or special education teachers, reading or instructional coaches, or speech language pathologists. Prior certification training or expertise in reading or special education is preferred. Please make sure that in the application process for when you put in your application for curriculum and instruction with a focus on either reading education or special education, please make sure that you mention your teaching or clinical experience in that application. Yes, Dr. PT.
I just wanted to add to make clear why that is a minimum requirement for you all. There are 2 primary reasons for that. The first is you all are entering this program to gain advanced degrees that will put you in a position to take on professorships at colleges and universities that are training teachers. Most of those jobs require you to have at least 2 or 3 years of prior teaching experience with P12 learners. You need to be directly teaching students from preschool to 12th grade. If you don't have those experiences, you often will not qualify for those positions. And so that's one reason why we make that requirement. The other reason why we make that requirement is because you are moving into advanced training at the doctoral level, we actually don't spend a lot of time training you to do things associated with teaching P12 students. We are training you to do things associated with teaching the people who teach P12 students. So there's a fundamental assumption in much of our coursework, as well as in much of your assignments and experiences, that you know what it's like to be in schools and that you've engaged with young learners in one way or another, including learners with disabilities. We don't give you those experiences in your doctoral training. So it's very important that you've had those experiences before entering a doctoral program, and that's why those are minimum requirements. They will make you much more competitive to take on a job at a college or a university once you complete the program.
Thank you. Okay, so other important considerations are a demonstrated commitment to these things. So demonstrated commitment to begin the doctoral program in either reading or special education in August 2022. We're also looking for a commitment to study full-time on campus in Tallahassee for the duration of the training program. So this is a full-time program where you would need to be here in person to participate. And also a commitment to attaining a faculty position in a university post-graduation. So as I've heard Dr. PT say several times, through this grant, we're kind of training you to be us when you grow up. So we're kind of training you to do what we do. So we're sort of looking for people who are interested in developing skills in teaching, research, and service to pursue a faculty position upon graduation from the program. So that's why that consideration is there. And we're going to jump in. We're going to open it up for questions at this time. So I've given you a little bit of background about the program, some of the logistics about the application program or process, and I'm sure lots of you have questions about this process and what we're doing here at FCRR and in the School of Teacher Education. So we're very happy to answer those questions now. I also want to mention that there is another information session. So next week is the College of Education preview week, and the School of Teacher Education has a session on October 26th from 4 to 6 p.m. So Dr. Cabell will be leading that discussion for the reading education program. So we welcome you to come to that as well to get more information and to hear other perspectives at that time. In addition to that session, there's more information available on social media. So you can follow FCRR on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Pinterest, and Instagram. And there's also more information at the FCRR website, fcrr.org, under student experiences. You can also check out the FCRR website to see some of the research program or projects that are happening within the center, to see some of the research that you may be able to be involved in as a scholar with R2D2. So there's more information available there. I see that we do have some of our current scholars with us this evening. So maybe we'll just start our Q&A by allowing them to introduce themselves so that if anyone has questions for them, they can ask those as well. So Rhonda, can we start with you?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Rhonda Rains, and I am currently in my second year in the program here. And I, before this, was a reading specialist for about 15 years, and am now focusing on hopefully going to be, let me start over. Sorry, I didn't know I was going to be talking. My research interest is basically the training of pre-service teachers for elementary education, especially in reading. And so that's kind of what I have been focusing on here. And I rave about this to everyone because as much as I thought I knew as a reading specialist, the last year and a half has been showing me how much more I have to learn. And it's just been a great thing here to be able to work with all of the researchers and faculty here.
Great, thank you, Rhonda. Jenny, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jenny Todd, and I am also in my second year of my PhD program. And my area of focus is on in-service professional development for teachers and the early preschool kind of space, and preventing learning difficulties and kind of supporting students early on in their educational career and supporting the teachers who support them. My prior experience was a kindergarten and first grade teacher. And so I worked with a lot of students early on in their education, and they came in very different in their abilities, and they needed diverse supports. So that's kind of where I came from. And I would also echo Rhonda, and I didn't know what I didn't know until I was in this program. My critical thinking and my problem solving has definitely changed. I'm a totally different person, just like a year and a semester in. It is a very brain expanding opportunity. And there are so many different opportunities and supports for you in this program. And they very much set it up for you to be successful and to support you in all of your phases. Because it's a long program, it will be really challenging, but you have a great team here at FSU and a great community and collaboration going on. So.
Great, thanks so much. So let's open it up for questions now. Feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself if you have a question. Or you can also put it into the chat.
I had one question that came in through the chat that looked like it went to me, but I am answering, I hope, in a way that helps everyone, because I think lots of people probably have this question. And it's about whether or not you can transfer credits from another program. Let's say you've either started a doctoral program, or maybe you've started a specialist degree and you want to know if some of your credits can transfer into this doctoral program. There's a process that you can go through to review credits to see if they transfer, but it is very likely they will not. And that is pretty standard practice for doctoral programs. Most PhD programs require that the majority of your coursework is completed within that program at that university. So it's not unusual for that type of a request to be denied at the doctoral level. It's much more often that it will be allowed at the master's level and sometimes at the specialist level. So we can try and we can certainly ask on your behalf, but I think you should be prepared that more than likely all credits will be required to be taken here. And so you should just plan on that.
Great, thank you.
We have a few more questions in the chat, Dr. Stacy.
I'd like to add something to that about the credits. There are universities that allow you to transfer your master's credit in towards your doctoral degree. However, here, but those universities allow you to do that have far more credits needed to finish your doctorate. So you'd have to look at apples versus apples and not apples and oranges, because if you complete credit toward a master's degree, then that credit doesn't become applied to your doctorate here at Florida State. But it's not necessarily means you're doing more work here than you would be at that other university. It's just that they require more credit hours and allow you to transfer in your master's. So I've been in that. My personal circumstance was in a program like that. So I just want to make sure people aren't confused about that.
Yeah, thank you. And Katie, I forgot to ask you to introduce yourself. And as we get into some of the sort of logistical things about applications and stuff, this seems like a great time to do that since you are such a help with all of that. So,
well, probably everybody on this call knows me through email, but I'm Katie Goodman. I am the program manager for R2D2 and another doctoral training program that we have called Fireflies. And basically I help you guys survive.
Faculty included.
indeed.
So thank you. We do have more questions, Dr. Stacy.
Great.
Are you able to participate in the program if you're not awarded a scholarship through this grant?
So there are some other funding options within, so as Katie just mentioned, there are other training grants that are also currently going on in the center right now. And so there's R2D2 and Fireflies. So you could also consider applying for Fireflies as well. We do have some limited departmental funds as well within the reading and special education program. So that's something that we could discuss further.
And I would add, beyond the funding, in terms of programmatically, can you participate in these different activities? Absolutely. much of what our R2D2 fellows are participating in are either courses or research opportunities or professional learning opportunities that are available to all students who are FCRR doctoral students. It is just the way we train our students. And what we do is we go out and seek out opportunities to get funding so that you all can study full time and not be distracted by having to have another job or having to take on other responsibilities. And that's what R2D2 is. That's what our other training grants are. Our other funded opportunities, they allow you to focus. They allow you to leave whatever your job is right now and focus entirely on this. So just keep that in mind as you think about these different funding opportunities are available. That's what they are. They're funding. But this approach to training students and these different opportunities that we provide to your training students are universal, and you will be provided with that should you be accepted as a doctoral student at FSU with any faculty member who is an FCRR faculty member.
We generally try not to admit students that we cannot fund. If we can't make a commitment to funding you, it's unlikely that you'll be admitted. I think this also has to do with, and these different streams have to do, right now we have all three different streams, the Fireflies funding, the departmental funding, and the R2D2 funding represented in our reading education program. I see a question in there about, can international students qualify? Our departmental funding supports international students. This particular grant, I believe, cannot support international students. Is that correct, Dr. Stacy?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, you have to be either a US citizen or have a green card, be a permanent resident to qualify.
Same with Fireflies.
Yeah, and that comes because it's a grant from the federal government. Those regulations come from them.
Okay, a bunch of questions about the application process.
Yes. So as I said, the way that the application process goes is that you apply to the program first, and you indicate through that application that you're interested in being considered for R2D2. So you would go through the application process the same as anyone applying to either reading or special education through which is listed under those programs on the website, and we can share those links with you as well. And there should be a box to check within that application to indicate your interest in R2D2.
And yes, for the student who, or someone there just asked, you're in the middle of applying for another program, can you apply for this one? Yes, you can. Just when you go into the application for the graduate school, you choose which programs you wish to apply to. Just make sure you apply for curriculum instruction. Choose whether or not you want to apply for a major within that program in reading education or special education based on your interest. And then we will then see your application.
And there was another question, just to make it clear, there's not a specific R2D2 application. You'll do that through the academic program.
I will say it will be helpful and important as a part of your application process. You do need to fill out a statement of purpose, what you want to do when you grow up, why you want to go to graduate school, why you want to be a part of this program. If you are interested in the R2D2 training opportunity, you should make that clear in that statement, and you should make clear why participating in this particular training will help you advance your research and career goals.
Conferences, they're held all over, not just in Florida, actually international, correct? Can we do that? Are we back to international again?
Yeah, hopefully coming up. Yeah, we will be. So the ones that I mentioned were the International Dyslexia Association. That one usually happens, that one happens in the States, but it's all over the States. So this year it's in Charlotte. Next year, I think it's in San Antonio. The Society for the Scientific Study of Reading, that happens all over the world. And the Council for Exceptional Children also tends to happen in the States primarily, but it happens all over as well.
Oh, there's one coming up in Australia too.
Yeah, that's Triple SR in not this coming
2
summer, but the
years.
summer after.
Right. What happens is you receive a stipend, an amount of money that should allow you to offset the cost of travel. And so you'll want to budget accordingly, and you'll want to be savvy with how it is that you use your funds. So if you want to go to Triple SR in Australia coming up, you might want to figure out how to set aside the majority of your funds. But you do have funding that's available to support travel to participate in those conferences. That includes registration fees, airplane fees, hotel fees, even per diem. Just note that you do have, it's not an unlimited amount of funds. There's a certain amount of funds you get to use every year. And so when those opportunities come around, we do talk about who's going and when are you going. And we have all been that student who bunked with 5 other graduate students in a conference to make it happen. And that may be your experience, but it's bonding and it pulls you together for life. So just keep that in mind. But it is expected that as a participant in this program, you will maintain membership in these professional research organizations, learn about them, and see how they fit in your own developmental path as a scholar.
Great, thanks. Rashawn, I see your hand is raised.
Or do we
Yes,
have a raise?
ma'am.
Yes, Rashawn.
Good evening, everybody. And I think Dr. Pat and Terry kind of clarified it, but I just wanted to make sure. So I've already submitted my application for the reading and instruction program, and I'm in the process of uploading my additional documents. So within my statement of purpose, I should just express my interest for wanting to be an R2D2 fellow, and that's what would kind of gauge y'all attention to say, hey, she's interested in the program. Okay.
Yes, and it,
You mean like
Katie, should there be a box for R2D2 for them to indicate their interest at this point, or is that?
Yeah, it
later?
actually was maybe added today. We just got all the departments approved. So Rashawn, probably when you submitted, there wasn't that little box, but I mean, I have all your information on file, so you're not going anywhere.
Okay, perfect. That's good because it wasn't there when I did mine, but as long as I'm on the radar, then that's fine.
They literally just added it, if it's even added. It may not be.
And mentioning your interest within your personal statement is also a good idea. Yeah. And if you run into, just sort of like as we address all of these application questions, if you do run into any problems with the application process, do feel free to reach out to Katie, and we'll do our best to help you resolve any issues that might come up.
Yeah, I can pull your applications. I can answer your questions, anything you need.
I'd like to address the GRE question. So the question about are GRE scores required? At this time in our department, yes, GRE scores are required. And there's a certain number of years, I've forgotten the exact number of years that you can get that fit within the GRE scores. So even if you took them a few years ago, they might be able to qualify. Just inquire about that as you're applying. I
think it was 5.
Is it 5?
Yeah,
5.
5.
We though take into consideration your whole application. So it does, even if you look at our GRE, the targets that we have published on the School of Teacher Education's website, don't be disheartened if you don't meet some of those targets, because we look at your whole application and we consider that as a whole. So yes, the GRE is required as of right now, but it is one piece of information of many pieces.
So I'm seeing some other questions in the chat about housing stipend. So that is all within the $30,000 stipend. So there isn't a housing stipend on top of that.
If accepted, would you have to repay the grant? No. What do they repay, Dr. Pratt and Terry?
So there is a requirement for this particular fellowship where you repay by taking on a position that is designed for what you're receiving training for. So you're receiving training to go into faculty positions. It's expected that you pay that back by actually going into faculty positions. I believe the payback is 2 years for every year that you receive funding. So since it's 4 years of funding, the expectations is that you will be in a faculty position for 8 years. If you do not meet that requirement, there are repayment requirements for this particular fellowship. So it is very important that you intend to use this opportunity to move into an academic position at a college or university to train teachers to work with children with reading disabilities and dyslexia. If you do not, you are required to submit respond to surveys and other documents that they track you along your progress in the program and after the program to make sure you are meeting that requirement. So you are making a 12-year commitment, 4 years of doctoral study, 8 years of employment in a college or university to take on this training. So it really is a career shift, and you should think of it that way and pursue it in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Another question, I'm currently a CFSLP, interested in applying. Would I be able to maintain my CCCs in the program?
The interesting question of Cs. So yes, you can maintain your Cs because you, if you've already hit the stage of Cs, then you yourself are the one who pays for the Cs and continues to do whatever the continuing education requirements are for ASHA for you to remain compliant with your Cs. So yes, that is something you can do. And in fact, I would say we'd encourage you to do it because when you move into a faculty position, in order to supervise students in the field and in some training opportunities, they require faculty with Cs to have Cs to do it. So it's like having teacher certification. It's a good idea to hold on to it for a few years while you're into whatever faculty position you're in. I think the bigger question that you should think about is whether or not you see yourself as a faculty person in a college of education or a faculty person in a communication sciences and disorders program. Because the training that happens in those two programs, the courses you take, the types of research you participate in, the requirements that you move forward in, the interviewing process as you move on into a faculty position, they are different. And it will be noticeable. And so you really will want to think about whether or not you want to pursue a PhD in an education program as opposed to a PhD in a communication sciences and disorders program. We do have one R2D2 fellow who is was a practicing SLP. She does have her Cs, and she decided to pursue this particular program with a PhD in curriculum and instruction. But we also have others who have chosen not to do that, and they actually applied for their PhD in the communication sciences and disorders program and participate in funding through a different fellowship program, through the Fireflies training program. So I really encourage you to reach out to the faculty in ComDis. You can certainly reach out to me. I know a lot about this because my PhD is in comm disorders, so I had to make this decision. But it is a decision, an intentional one that you should make from an informed standpoint. Do not do this program if you don't think you want to be faculty in a college of education. It will not line up for you. It will be much better for us to figure out how to get you fully funded in communication sciences and disorders if that's where you see yourself. But I'm happy to have that conversation.
And there are several faculty within communication sciences and disorders who study reading and reading related topics and are affiliated with FCRR.
So I see a question, does completion of the fellowship in the PhD program guarantee employment at FSU and FCRR? So no, you will be part of FSU and FCRR during the doctoral preparation, but typically FSU does not hire people who have graduated with a terminal degree from FSU. So you would be preparing to go on to another institution after graduation. And Dr. Patentary and Dr. Cabell, you can add to that if you'd like. Oh, okay, awesome.
There's another one, Dr. Stacy. Is there flexibility with the 4-year commitment? I don't think so, right? And potentially be done in less time?
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Patton here.
It is not likely you will be done in less time. The 4-year, finishing a PhD in 4 years is an accelerated pace. This will be hard. This will be very fast paced. It will be very difficult to complete it in 4 years, even as the best student you've ever seen, because it happens very fast. So you will need to expect to be here for 4 years, and you'll also need to expect to complete the program in 4 years. If you do not complete the program in 4 years, you can continue to be enrolled at FSU in this doctoral program, but you won't have funding to be enrolled in this doctoral program. And you will still need to meet the requirements of the fellowship, which are for you to eventually take on a position in a college or a university. So there's not a lot of flexibility there. And related to the question before, Laura, you asked us, I was fumbling with my mute button. It is very important for everyone here who's thinking about applying for this program to understand that a PhD program, enrolling in a PhD program, represents a career shift. This is not the track for anyone who thinks they're going to come to this program, get a little extra knowledge about training teachers, and then go back to a school district, right? Or go back to maybe a nonprofit or some other sort of experience for which those skills are absolutely necessary and wonderful career paths to do. But we are going to train you to be leaders and researchers and scholars in reading research like us, which means the expectation is that when you graduate, you'll go on to take on careers that look very much so like our careers. You'll be going on to research intensive universities, perhaps comprehensive universities, but these are universities that are 4-year institutions where faculty are expected to teach, but they're also expected to do research, and they're also expected to be leaders in their field of study. One of your questions there is about whether or not there is a demand for those positions. Currently, yes, there is a demand for those positions. What you find is there are a lot of faculty who are aging in our particular discipline, and we are all looking for individuals to fill those positions as the faculty retire. We're also finding that people really value having faculty in reading who have an interdisciplinary focus and training. So it's not by mistake that in our particular program, we have someone who's focused on preschool and early childhood, and someone who's focused on reading disabilities and dyslexia, and someone who's focused on language, and that's by design, because faculty in the broad interdisciplinary field of reading can come from many different disciplines, but we coalesce together around this program to prepare faculty who can move on into colleges of education, be stellar researchers in their discipline, and also be well-trained to train future teachers, either pre-service or in-service teachers. That's the job. That's what you're preparing to do. That means when you finish this degree, you are moving, because you can't get a job here. You got to move and go somewhere else, to go to another university to get a job there and be a star there, or get a postdoc to be a star there. If that's not how you see your life moving forward, you don't want this PhD. You might be in search of a different type of terminal degrees, and there are lots of different types of terminal degrees. Or you might be in search of a different kind of training, because there are lots of different ways to be trained in doctoral study. But the kind of training that you get here is going to prepare you to move in that direction. And you really want to think about if that's the direction you want to move. Because as Jenny and Rhonda said, and I'm sure they can give you more thoughts about this as well, it is a shift and it is difficult. And we are here to support you through that. But you really have to be committed to the idea that you are moving into a different trajectory for your life. And that's where we're going to prepare you to do.
Thank you. Dr. PT, could you also add information about the time window from the time they complete the program to when they need to start employment at a university? I believe it's immediate, but.
Immediately. Yep. So if you stay on track, you will complete the program in either spring or summer of the academic term, and you should be starting your faculty position in the fall. So in your final year, while you're doing your dissertation, you'll also be applying for jobs, and you will be well prepared and supremely competitive to do it.
And as Dr. PT mentioned, that can also be a postdoc. So at the end of this, you may be applying for postdocs, you may be applying for faculty positions, but one or the other.
I think we covered most of it.
Okay.
Madison has her hand raised.
Hi, Madison.
Hi, thank you for all the information tonight. I did have one question, kind of going along what you were talking about. My professional goals align with the vision that you stated up R2D2, but I did have a question about how the doctoral program training provided by FSU would differ with the reading education and special education route. I have a master's in special education, and I'm interested, like, just the differentiation between how those training programs and the quality, with those same goals in mind, how that would differ between the two routes.
Yeah. So you're talking about like the reading education and the special education program within
yes, within the curriculum instruction.
Yeah. So I'll answer first, and then Dr. Cabell and Dr. Patton-Terry, if you want to add to what I say, that would be great. So the structure of the program and the activities of the program will be the same, because within R2D2 we have a very specific course sequence and activities that we expect all scholars to be doing. So you'll very likely take nearly the same classes. So it really depends on where you see yourself after graduation. So if you see yourself wanting to go into a special education department to be a professor in special education, that may be the route for you. If you see yourself going into reading education, that may be the route for you. That said, the experiences are very similar, and they're all under the curriculum and instruction degree. So regardless of which route you take, you're getting the same PhD in curriculum and instruction. It's just noting a focus on one or the other. So if you really know at this time that you want to be in special education, then that would be the track. I'll just add to that I think it doesn't rule out for people who are in the reading education program studying reading disabilities and dyslexia. I wouldn't think that it would totally rule out positions in special education after graduation. But if you really know that that's the route you want to go, it's probably a good idea to go into that at this stage.
I mean, I think also considering the kinds of classes you want to teach after, when you're in the university setting, if they are special ed related or if they're more general ed related, I think that's one potential distinguishing when I think about reading education jobs across the United States. But in terms of the kind of experiences, like Dr. Stacey was saying, I feel like we're very fluid between the reading ed and the special ed departments. Like, for example, Dr. Stacey is officially in special ed, but she's also in reading ed. So, so I feel like there's support there, but I do think that thinking through, what kinds of courses would I want to teach? What kinds of maybe supervision do I want to do? And that could potentially guide you, but I would think too, in reading education programs across the country, there's also some special ed folks, and vice versa. But if you know you want to be in a special ed, interested in special ed, then it might be easier to do a special ed route and have a special ed PhD and join a special ed faculty, because in some universities, special ed and reading ed are completely don't talk to each other. Mm-hmm. So it's just really, I think, important for also us to note as you move through the process. If we're aware of your thinking through that, we probably will ask you questions around that. So we want to make sure people have a good fit.
Absolutely, yeah. And I just wanted to add to that if you are interested in other disabilities, like perhaps you're interested in the intersection of reading disabilities and autism or something like that, that may like we have experts on reading and autism here at FSU. And so if you're particularly interested in working with another population of students with disabilities, that might be another reason to go the special education route. But that's not to say that you couldn't have, that you wouldn't have experiences with those people if you wanted them, regardless of which route you go.
Well, I think our current R2D2 fellows, most of them are fluid in being either special ed or reading ed when they leave here.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Jenny, what did you want to say?
I was gonna kind of say similar things. So Dr. Stacy was talking about, I think maybe a distinction might be kind of in the research that you're wanting to do and maybe who you're wanting to work with and like the populations that you're wanting to be involved with, I think would also probably be a significant distinction if you want to do like more general reading. I mean, it is reading disabilities and dyslexia, so there is that that special ed piece. But basically, I was going to say very similar to what Dr. Stacy was adding.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Jenny, around research interest too. That's great. Dr. PT, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you guys covered it. I would have said the same thing. What are your research interests and what lines up best with that? What do you want to teach when you get out of here? What lines up best with that? I think one really one good way, one trick to do this is to look at the faculty who are engaged here, right? And which one of us is more like the one you want to be when you grow up and do what they did. Like really, what is that? If you envision yourself doing really stellar, hardcore dyslexia research, you go to the International Dyslexia Association conference every year, you teach courses in reading disabilities, you want to be Laura Stacy when you grow up, you want to be a special ed major, and you have a master's in special education, that's where you want to go, right? If you have a master's in reading or reading education, and you're interested in things related to curriculum, and you're interested in things related to what's happening in the general classroom, you're interested in early childhood, you want to be Dr. Cabell when you grow up, right? So I think about, if you take a look at who the faculty are, because that's who your primary advisors will be, how does what you want to do when you finish this program line up with those folks? That will probably tell you which way to go. Yes, and as Jenny said, look at the faculty.
Learn how to read faculty.
They make a difference. Right.
There's one last question.
I'm taking off mute because, someone asked about housing.
Yeah, housing.
So I believe there is graduate student housing on campus. I think we can take a look at it.
I know, but I'm pretty sure there is.
Yeah, I think there is graduate student housing. I will say most graduate students live off campus, right? Mm-hmm. You will receive a stipend through your package. You get a monthly stipend, and you use your funding towards that stipend to offset the costs associated with living here in Tallahassee. And so that's how you would, and whether or not you're paying that to the university to live in student housing or paying that through rent is entirely up to you. I will say that Tallahassee is a college town, so there's an ample amount of housing appropriate for undergraduate as well as graduate students here. And it's relatively affordable, being that Tallahassee is a smaller college town in the Southeast. So graduate school is not cheap. I'm not gonna lie. It's always hard to be a graduate student, but it is relatively affordable to be a graduate student in Tallahassee. The cost of living is doable.
Mm-hmm. So I think we'll end on this question and around FCRR, and maybe Dr. Patton-Terry, as the director of FCRR, you might want to take it. So might you be able to articulate your vision of FCRR and related doctoral programs? What might you say sets you apart from other research institutions? And do you have a vision for your future if it's at all different from the present? I'm wondering if these programs are part of that. Thanks.
So I totally saw that question and tried to skip it. I think that, and in that PowerPoint, you have a link to our student experiences page. And I think if you look at that homepage, you will see the graphic actually that Dr. Stacy shared with you all. It really is reflective of what we hope to achieve through these training programs. We really do think that FCR has an incredible history of training future education researchers focused specifically on reading and reading related issues. We know how to do that very well. And we want to continue to do that because clearly there's work to be done. I'm sure many of you are here because you're following ongoing conversations related to science of reading and who's getting the science of reading, who's delivering the science of reading, who understands the science of reading, and what are we doing to help kids with the science of reading? Well, we make that science here, right? And so we want to make sure that we continue to advance the field in that way. But what we also know is that science evolves. It changes over time based on what we learn because the entire scientific endeavor is a learning journey. And so we want to make sure that we're developing scholars who can learn and evolve as the science evolves and pick up new skills and practices and techniques based on what the evidence tells us. For example, the evidence tells us that just because you create an evidence-based practice or policy or program doesn't mean people will use it in schools. So what do you do about that as a researcher? What's your role in that? How do you communicate about your evidence with the public? How do you disseminate your evidence to the public? How do you support teachers or families or other practitioners, policymakers to make use of that evidence, to actually make decisions based on that evidence? That is a relatively new area of study. And it's an area of study that we in reading actually don't do. Other people do that work. But it's our job in the way that we think about our training to make sure that you benefit from experiences that help you understand how all of this wonderful science you will be creating will actually be picked up and used by the folks we intended to be picked up and used by. So that's one way in which we continuously evolve our training programs to be responsive to the needs of practitioners and policymakers now and moving forward. I will also say that we are very committed to making sure that this next generation of reading researchers is diverse in experiences, diverse in expertise, diverse in life experiences, diverse by race and culture and class and generational experiences with higher education and academia. We want our scholars to reflect this world that we live in, because that means their research will be reflective of that as well and be responsive to it. And so we do take that seriously, and we try to make sure that we're providing experiences that allow our scholars to benefit and our science to benefit from the diversity amongst us.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for all of your questions. If you have any more questions that come up, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask. It was great to meet you all tonight. Thank you.
Good luck, everyone.
Thank you.